So much for joining us this Tuesday, June 2nd for our fourth and potentially final budget work session for our 2026-27 budget cycle. Before we get into our agenda items, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none? Okay, then our first presentation today will be the library. And we have our library director, why does it say interim? Yeah, Dana. But I was like, oh, there you go. I was reading the APS. I was like, Stacy Bluth. Bye.
I'm not Stacy. Oh, thank you. All right. Good morning, Vice Chair Lum, Commissioners, County Manager. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you this morning. I wanted to share with you an overview of the Durham County Library System, where we are, the work that's happening right now, and how we're preparing for the future. I have been your library director since January, and I've spent a lot of time learning and talking and listening, and I'm really proud of the work that my staff here do every day. And I hope that this presentation gives you a clear picture of what our strengths are and the direction we are moving forward. I don't have a problem if you want to ask me questions in the middle, or we can wait till the end, whatever is your pleasure. Maybe. There we go. I always like to begin any presentation reminding everyone why the library is here. Our mission is to encourage diversity, connect the community, and lead in literacy. Our vision is inspiring lives and transforming Durham. Our mission and our vision guide everything that we do to expand access, reduce barriers, and empower lifelong learners. When discovery and literacy are at the center, our community becomes more resilient and more connected. Just as a reminder, we do have a very full and vibrant countywide system. We have the main library and 4 regionals, North, East, South, and Southwest, and 2 branches, Stanford L. Warren and Bragtown. Our reach extends far beyond our buildings through community engagement services, including our bookmobile. Together, these locations and services help us meet people where they are. Right now, we have about 700,000 people visiting our libraries annually, and 61% of our residents are card holders. Wanted to just break down what we do every day. One of our main things that we do is programming, outreach, and engagement. We offer an expansive range of programs and outreach services that include programming for children, for teens, for adults. We have small business services, maker and STEAM activities, mobile services like the bookmobile, and we also provide Spanish-speaking services, family literacy support, humanities programming, OASIS services for older adults and shut-ins, accessibility services, and strong community partnerships. The breadth ensures that we're reaching as many community members as possible. Just to give you a little baseline of where we are, we offer about 7,000 programs annually for about 160,000 people. Some of our biggest programs include our annual summer reading program, which starts on June 15th and runs through August 8th, and we just completed Library Fest in April of this year. The heart of the library, of course, is our collections. We offer print and digital books, music, movies, audiobooks, a wide variety of subscription databases, and online learning resources. Behind the scenes, our staff work carefully to select, maintain, and preserve materials that reflect the needs and interests of Durham's diverse community. 2 standout areas in our North Carolina collection, our North Carolina collection and the Selena Warren Wheeler collection at the Stanford L. Warren branch. Both preserve vital pieces of local history and culture. Our staff are also available to help customers find their next read, whether it's through a display or by offering a reader's advisory conversation. Much of the work that keeps our collection strong happens behind the scenes. Staff handle the selection and acquisition, cataloging, processing, ongoing evaluation, digital collection management, and interlibrary loan of every material that we have. These efforts ensure that our materials are current, accessible, and easy for our customers to discover, whether they're searching online or browsing shelves. Right now, we have about 600,000 physical items in our locations, and we circulate 3.5 million items every year, and about 1/3 of that is digital. We also have library operations, and that's where the heart of things happen to keep the library happening. We have our frontline staff at each location, but we have functions like HR and facilities, IT, budget, finance, administration, marketing, more, all those things behind the scenes. We have a lot of building maintenance and technology to support the strategic planning and the data analysis. These teams keep consistent, welcoming, and effective services across the locations. Professional development is one of those things that's very important to me, and a key component of what we do behind the scenes is to keep our staff up to date. Technology access is our last area of focus for the library. We're one of the few places where anyone can access free technology. We offer public computers, productivity tools, Wi-Fi, circulating hotspots. We support digital literacy through technology training, maintain the website and the online catalog. We provide makerspace and STEAM opportunities for all ages. A major priority for us is bridging the digital divide, ensuring that all community members have the tools and the skills they need to thrive in the digital world. Annually, we help about 55,000 people with their technology needs. Looking ahead to where we're going, we have a very strong library system, but we want to keep growing and improving. Very soon, we'll begin our comprehensive strategic plan process for the library. We'll be collecting input for stakeholders across the community. We want to understand what our residents want and the need, what they want and need from their public library. It'll help us guide our priorities and help us map a clear and intentional path forward. Adjacent to that, one of the things that we're hoping to do in the very near future is our master facility plan, so that we can look at our library system as a whole and determine, is it meeting the needs of the community? Do we need additional facilities in the future? And what are those needs? While we're working on a strategic plan, we're also strengthening what we do each and every day. We want to make sure that we're reviewing all of our policies, our procedures, our practices to make sure we're consistent across the system, that we're efficient, and we're effective. We're working to make sure that we can measure outcomes more effectively. We want to be able to capture those stories of impact of how the library improves the lives of our community. And then we also want to continually evaluate all that we do so that we can improve every time. And then finally, we're doing a lot of investing in our staff. They're our greatest asset, as you all know. We offer opportunities for the community to keep up to date with the rapidly changing world, which means our staff have to be ahead of that. And I'm committed to ongoing professional development and continuous learning for our staff. We want our team to be agile, prepared, confident as new challenges and opportunities arrive. The investment in staff not only strengthens our internal capacity, it directly improves the experience for our customers. And finally, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're focusing on is shaping the culture, our organizational culture in the library. We want to have a strong and positive organizational culture, one that's rooted in curiosity, intentionality, and respect. Positivity. We want to make sure that we're having an impact on our community, a good impact. We're continually improving, and that we have focus so we know where we're going. Working hard to build our capacity to tell our story, to share the tremendous impact the library has on individuals, and to share and on the community as a whole. In closing, we have a strong foundation and an extraordinary team. We already provide tremendous value to the community, but we have the opportunity to become even stronger. I'm excited for where we're going, and I'm grateful to be a part of it, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have about the library.
Thank you, Director Dana. I appreciate you joining us. I know I put in the request to have our library presentation very last minute, so thank you so much for coming here and putting together a presentation and all the work that you've been doing across the library.
Absolutely.
That's 5 months?
Yeah.
Right, 5 months are starting in too?
Maybe at the end of the week it'll be 5 months.
Well, I have some questions, but I'll bring it to the board. Commissioner Burton?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Alam. Thank you for the presentation. The library is very near and dear to my heart. When I first came to Durham many years ago, I worked at the Durham County Library, and I worked there for about 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a floater, substitute. And it was, I would come in on the weekend when someone was out, fill in, that kind of thing. So anyway, One of the things I had a question about is I wonder how, like, students from DPS, are they able to access the library using their Power School number? I forget how we did it. It was the NC Slam thing. Like, yeah, I see.
Yes.
I'm losing my memory already.
Absolutely. So the program is called SLAM, and it's, I believe, students achieving literacy. Oh, I have to work on that. But the students are able to use their library ID to, or their Power School ID to use library resources. They can use them online as well as come in the library and check materials out.
So are you all keeping like data on that about how many students from DPS are accessing the library through their Power School number? I know with me, when I was in the schools as a media coordinator, that was some of the challenge that I had, was trying to get kids to say, hey, this is a resource for you, that you don't have to go into the library and get a physical card. You can use it accessing your Power School number. So I was wondering if you all were keeping data around that.
We do have data around that. I will say that the MOU that we have with Durham Public Schools was created in 2018 and probably needs to be revisited so that we can make sure that we're strengthening that partnership. We need to be more intentional about the way that we go into the schools and talk with the media coordinators and the teachers to go to curriculum nights and things like that, so we can make sure that students, teachers, media specialists are aware of the opportunity. With everything else that goes on in school, sometimes things like that get lost, and we need to do a better job of being more intentional about going in. But we do have data, and we do track that data. I don't have any of that data with me today, but...
And the reason I ask that is because we want to make sure, like the digital divide, and we're trying to make sure kids are successful in their academics. And I know it's a great resource.
Absolutely.
The library is such a huge resource, especially with all the digital materials that they have access to, and just trying to make sure that families know about it, they know about it, and we're getting the word out, because we don't want any child to not have access. So, and, just let us know. I'm the liaison to the board, and if you need me to assist, I'll be more than happy to do that, because we just want to make sure our young people have access to the Durham County Library.
Absolutely, because it's so important to be able to do proper research and not just Google or Chat GPT something to know that the information that they're getting is accurate. So yeah, that's definitely why they need to have that access. Absolutely.
One second, Commissioner Valentine, then Commissioner Jacobs.
Vice Chair, thank you. Director Connors, welcome to Durham County.
Thank you.
I've actually been down to your office once or twice, but they told me to make an appointment, just don't show up.
I'm out and about a lot.
And I'm happy to report that they actually put me to work while I was there. And
That's
so
excellent.
it was fun. I also want you to know that you're at the steering wheels of absolutely the #1 gem in our community.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people are excited about you being here. You had mentioned 61% of our residents are card holders. I want you to know that I happen to be one, and so is the rest of my family. 2 questions that I have for you. One is, are there any maintenance needs that you identified that we might not know about? And second, you had mentioned the culture in your presentation. Maybe you can share a little bit about your understanding of the culture there at the library.
Sure. So maintenance needs, we do have included in the manager's recommended budget of around $400,000 as part of a capital fund for maintenance in our libraries, specifically in our regional libraries. Our 4 regional libraries are about 20 years old, and they're starting to show some wear and tear. Carpet needs to be replaced. There's a lot of furniture that needs to be replaced. Just a lot of that 20-year-old building maintenance. General Services takes care of HVAC and roofs and things like that, but it's the stuff that our customers interact with on a daily basis that needs maintenance. So that $400,000 will go a long way toward making those improvements and making the libraries feel as welcoming as we want them to be.
So that question was, people talk to me,
Yes.
You can imagine, right?
Of course.
And so, aside from what was in the proposed budget, people are always saying, can you take a look at that? Hey, come take a walk with me. Look at this. And so, just keep your ears wide open.
Yes.
Right, about those maintenance needs, because I'll be checking. Yeah, I'll be checking all around the county. So tell me about the culture.
So the culture is great. I've spent a lot of time speaking to our staff. I've spoken to about 70 of our staff one-on-one. I set up opportunities for anyone who wanted to speak to me. And what I learned about our library is that our staff are very passionate. They are very proud of the work they do, the programs they offer. They are excited to serve our community. There's some anxiety among staff sometimes about spending long hours working on the desk with direct public service, and it's making sure that our staff are well trained and that they have the supports that they need to be able to do that, because that's really what we're here for, is to serve our community. And in that frontward facing public service. Overall, I think our culture is good. I know that for a year and a half without a permanent library director, things kind of drifted away. So right now I'm working to make sure that we're all on the same page and moving forward at the same rate. Talking to a lot of people, offering that transparency that they all wanted, and the communication that everyone has asked me for. So I think we have a good culture. With any organization's culture, it becomes what it is unless you shape it. So that's why I want to make sure that we're shaping that culture to be one of curiosity and focus, and positivity and respect. I'm not saying we don't have that culture. I'm saying I just want to make sure that that's where, when I'm talking to our staff, that they're hearing it from me, that's what I want to see. But it takes all of us working together to get it there.
Well, Director Connors, I am excited for you and with you. And let me end by saying that even in the digital world, I prefer a hardbound book. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jacobs, before you go, Manager Hager.
I just wanted to make one comment. Ms. Connors, Director Connors talked about the repair renovations for the library, and Keith and I just conferred. There is a desire to update the Master Facilities Plan, and we'll bring that item to the board in July. We will have lots of capital conversations in the summer and fall as we try to adopt and update our CIP plan. We have lots of opportunity, more than dollars, but so we want to make sure that we have the sufficient time and updated information in many spaces. But this is a high priority in an area that most of our residents use, and so we want to protect our gym.
Appreciate that.
Happy to hear it.
Thank you so much, Director Connors, for really all that you have accomplished in a very short time. We have received very few emails complaining, and that is, I would say, it is indicative, because for several years we have been getting a lot of complaints about many different things, and the fact that it's been virtually quiet, especially from employees, is really incredible. So you are working wonders. As Commissioner Ballantyne said, our library system is the heart of our community. It's really, I believe, one of the institutions that is central for our democracy in so many ways, especially now. And is a real equalizer in our society. So I was wondering, I have several questions. Because you come to the system with experience in a lot of different places, maybe you're not ready to share this yet, but I'll be really interested to hear kind of where you think the opportunities are for Durham County Library, or where do you things that you've done other places, or that are kind of happening nationally, best practices. Like, just I don't know if you, and it's fine if you're not ready to discuss it yet, but I'm really interested to hear about that.
Sure, I can share a few things.
Okay.
As I've mentioned, we do need a strategic plan because it's not where I want the library to go. It's where our community wants the library to go and all of our stakeholders. So as we create our strategic plan, we'll be talking with the community to make sure we understand where they want us to go. I could make decisions all day long, but I want them to be the right decisions for Durham County. But there are things that we're working on right now that are important. As I mentioned, programming is one of the things that we do really well. We don't have someone in our organization who oversees programming, who is the go-to person for programming. And we have a position right now that's with our HR department being reclassified to become a program and events coordinator. I'm not sure what the exact title will be, so that they can oversee all of our programming, making sure that we are not duplicating effort, that we're focused, and that people have a place to go when they have questions about programs or about creating contracts for speakers or whatever that may be, because we don't have that central place right now, and so things are a little more scattered, and so that's one of the things that I'm working on right now. Otherwise, just a lot of, as I mentioned, some things just to shore up to make sure our policies and procedures are where we need them to be, so that we are ready when that strategic plan is launched to know where we want to go and how we're going to get there. We need a really strong foundation to be able to do that. There are some other things I will tell you. You have asked about our Tecmo and our Tecmo, we received that in 2017, 2018. And my understanding of that is that it's been problematic since the day we got it because of a couple of different reasons. One, it requires a commercial driver's license to drive. The other thing is it takes up, I think, 8 parking spaces, and it has to be on a very flat surface to be able to be used. The technology is a little aging. It hasn't actually been out of our garage since April of last year, not this April, but April of last year. So we're looking at possibly sending it. It's on its way, but thinking about how can we provide technology in different ways. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is with our Bragtown library is the possibility of putting a 24-hour library in the parking lot. And what a 24-hour library is it's a large vending machine about the size of a small trailer. It has 250 books on a rotation. You can pick up your holds there. You can return materials there. It operates as a hotspot. And then using our Bragtown library as a place for meetings, for programs, for technology, so that we can utilize that space in a little bit more in a way that the community is asking for. We don't have a lot of program space in there right now, and I think that's the biggest need at Bragtown. That's just an idea. That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
That sounds really, really cool. I love it. So when you talked about 61% of residents having library cards, what is the benchmark for that nationally, percentage of a community?
It depends on each community. We are required by federal guidelines to purge anybody out of our system who hasn't used our library in 3 years. So all 61% of those people have used our library within the last 3 years. Benchmarks range anywhere from their communities that have 30% of their population who have library cards to 75 or 80%. I think that we are above 50% and doing really well. I don't know that there's a national benchmark for that unless someone else knows that information.
I think it would be interesting to dig into that further. It's in the future, especially when we look at census data and demographics, just to make sure that there aren't disparities around that. And also, this is more for the future, but when we look at literacy, and that's one of the missions, right? And I'm glad you talked about updating the MOU with DPS, and I didn't even know about the SLAM program, so that's really awesome. But, the reality is that right now, I think our 3rd grade literacy rate or reading scores are 41%, and we know how key that
Absolutely.
that data point is. And so just thinking about what are ways that the library can help be a part of that partnership with Durham Public Schools and our entire community around moving the needle on literacy. And I know other library systems have also been very engaged with FAFSA applications and tutoring after school. And then, of course, the main library, you're also dealing with unhoused residents. So a lot of social issues end up in your lap as well.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not asking for answers, but I just wanted to raise that, and also what, in the future, your ideas about kind of the nexus there with urban ministries and ways that we can, because I know some libraries have social workers in the libraries to help with that, and especially as we implement our strategic framework around ending functional homelessness. So again, I don't expect anything. I just wanted to raise that. And yesterday we were at the jail. They just had a big flood in their library and are really depleted on books. So like
our staff are meeting with them today to talk about that.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Awesome. My last question is related to the staffing, and I know there have been a lot of issues around getting Sunday hours going. Do you feel like it will be possible in the future to be fully open on Sunday the way we were before COVID?
Sure, we can do that in the future. It will require additional staffing for us to be able to do that, but I think that there's a community demand for that.
Yeah, I would just say that to our board, that hopefully we can look at that over the coming year in preparation for next year's budget, because that is one issue that I'm still hearing about. Because there are a lot of people that Sundays really are the only day they can get to the library, because they're working during the week. So I think, again, from an equity perspective, I think that's something that our board should try to tackle in partnership with you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I know Chair Lee is back, so I'll just provide my questions and pass it back to him. One of the reasons, I wanted to have this presentation with you is because, as everyone has mentioned in the past, almost 5 months that you've been here, there's been a significant amount of improvements, and just the way that, not just our patrons who are coming to the library, but our staff within the libraries have been feeling. And I wanted to give a moment for you to be able to highlight some of the efforts that you've put into lifting up our team, because as Commissioner Jacobs mentioned, we have been getting a lot less emails. And also from just one-on-one personal conversations with library staff that I've developed relationships with over the years, hearing from them how much less stress they're feeling, how they, are happier to come into work because they love their jobs. But, at sometimes there's been difficulty, but now they're I feel like I'm being seen, I feel like I'm being heard, and really appreciate you coming in and taking that time and effort to have those one-on-one conversations and opening up your office to really learn from the team before I know a lot of new leaders come in and they're just this is how I'm going to do it, just here are the changes, but you took the time to actually hear from everyone first. So wanted to give you a praise for that. I wanted to also add in questions along Commissioner Valentine's point around the maintenance and facilities pieces, wondering on technology within the library, since it's so vital, wondering, because I know in the past there's been issues where sometimes the 3D printers are down and we don't have the funding to repair those machines. We're wondering, do you has all, and the recording booths in the libraries haven't been able to be maintained or fixed and stuff. Do you feel like you have been able to get the resources to fix all those
So short answer is yes. We have a great partnership with County IS&T. They've been working very hard to replace all of our public access computers over the last month, which has been really helpful. They've also been working to improve a lot of the AV that we have in the main library for meeting rooms and things like that. They're also working on the recording studio. We've leveraged some funds that we have from the Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation to replace all of our 3D printers, and so we have a great new set of 3D printers that print at an extraordinarily much faster rate and also reliance than the last set have. So there's always opportunities for us to improve our IT because IT changes almost constantly, but we've made a lot of strides since I've been here. We have really been working hard with IS&T. Our IS&T manager who serves the library also attends all of my administrative leadership team meetings so that he's aware of what our issues are and he can report back to us on what's going on with technology. So I think we're in a good place now. As we move forward, as things change, things are changing every single day with technology. There will probably be opportunities for us to move faster with things, but right now we're in a really great place.
That's really good to hear because I know over the past 5 years I've been on the board, we've been hearing a lot from folks of like, this doesn't work. So to hear that, we're really getting into making those repairs. Thank you for that. I also wanted to ask something else that we hear quite a bit about is the community spaces, especially within main library for outside organizations and community groups that want to use the library. How can we make it more accessible, especially the auditorium space?
So the auditorium space is primarily used for library events, county events, and our partners. It's used a lot, which makes it difficult for other county, our other organizations within the county to have it available to them because we're using it a lot. We have programs in there very often with 100, 200 people who attend our programs. We had a program on bats last week, and we had well over 100 people attend that program, which is absolutely amazing. And we have a lot of large author events and things like that. While I want it to be available to the community, I want the library events to come first because that's what our community looks for in the library are those large events, and our staff are proud of those events. Once we start using it for a lot of groups, then we also start losing parking ability. Our parking lot is limited, and if we have another group with 200 people in there, then we don't have the availability for our customers to park. So that's a non-answer.
That makes sense, though. I appreciate it. I think, the last comment I just make, I know Commissioner Valentine mentioned that he likes a hard, solid book to be able to read as a Kindle person. I actually didn't even know this till middle of last year that there's an app called the Libby app.
Oh, absolutely.
One of my friends told me about it. I was like, I've been paying for Kindle books when you can just rent them from the library for free.
So we have a couple of different, I only read mine on the phone. But we have a couple of different apps. The Libby app is through Overdrive, and we purchase all the materials for our Durham County customers that are available. There's also 2 different programs through the Libby app through the state of North Carolina for children's materials. There's one for younger children. I think it's 5 years and younger, and then 6 years and older, that children can also check out books to read with their parents online.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Commissioner Burton.
Yeah, I just want to say this. I want to give a shout out to your business services librarian, Sierra. She does amazing work. I did a business listening tour, and all the resources that the business services librarian does, it's amazing. She does amazing work. So I wanted to make sure I gave her a big shout out. And also to the Friends of the Durham Library. I served on that board, and the Durham County Library Foundation. They make the work of the Durham County Library possible, and I sincerely mean it because Commissioner Jacobs and I talk about the literacy. So I will get with you about how we can come up with how can we work with DPS to make sure kids know about the SLAM program and making sure they use all those resources and get into their hands. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comments for the library? I apologize for being late, but thank you for presenting.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right, and I'll go back and watch. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is the Animal Protection Society.
Morning, Commissioners. Dwayne Brinson, Assistant County Manager. We're here to talk this morning about something near and dear to a lot of our community members' hearts, the Animal Shelter Animal Protection Society. We have the interim executive director, Ms. Stacy Bluth, here with us. We had a recent transition at the Animal Shelter, and I recently connected with Ms. Bluth and took a tour and had some conversations with her, working on some improvements over that way too. So I'm excited about her leadership, and I'm excited to have her here today. So Ms. Bluth, if you want to take it over, I know you have a presentation ready. Okay, and let's turn on the mic.
Hi, I'm Captain Manning with Animal Services Division.
And I'm Captain Penner.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I want to acknowledge before I get started the partnership that we have with the county and the sheriff's office and these folks over here at Animal Services. I've been in this role for 3 months and have been so impressed by the collaboration and commitment to the animals and the people of Durham County. I also know that this is a difficult budget season for everyone, and everybody has different priorities, and completely understand that. And today I really just want to start a conversation leading to a little bit more transparency about what it means to be operating the only open admission shelter, and hopefully start a longer term conversation about how to do this best for the community. So for those of you who aren't familiar with us, APS is actually a nonprofit organization. We have operated Durham County's only open admission shelter since 1990, and we do that in partnership with the county, the sheriff's office, and Animal Services. For those of you who are less familiar with what it means to be open admission, it means that we don't get to choose which animals come in our door. We take everything that comes in, regardless of age, behavior, medical condition, space challenges, or cost of care. Yesterday, we actually almost had 5 sheep, but thanks to our partnership with the Animal Services, they are back home safely. So we get all sorts of different things coming in our doors, very different than a model of a private rescue or a limited admission shelter. And on top of that, we don't just shelter the animals. We do all sorts of things like medical care, behavior support, adoptions, reunifications with people who have lost their animals, foster care, volunteer coordination, and community support services like low-cost spay and neuter, and also a food pantry. Increasingly, modern sheltering isn't just about crisis prevention, it's about prevention. So helping families keep their pets at home whenever possible. So one example I can give of that is recently we had a young dog named Cooper who came to the shelter because his owners felt he was becoming destructive and maybe a safety risk. He was a 5-month-old puppy chewing on furniture. Those of you who have dogs probably remember that phase. And they were ready to surrender him, but we could tell that they really loved this dog and wanted to keep him. So our behavior team was actually able to work with them, provide them with resources and some training tips, lots of enrichment toys and chew bones to take home, and then perhaps most importantly, we were able to connect them with another community partner. Cooper has now been in this house a year and is completely happy, and the family adores him. Okay, let's see there. There we go. I'm gonna just put this slide up here just so you can kind of look at the numbers. It's a little infographic of some of our recent data from 2025. So today I want to start a conversation with you all about how our budget has been working. APS, as a nonprofit, you may be aware, has been subsidizing shelter operations through fundraising, grants, and charitable giving. It has allowed us to kind of plug the holes and fill organizational gaps without the full cost of what it costs to run the shelter in the county contract. The challenge right now is we're seeing increased demand, rising costs for care, and lots of operational complexity that have made it really difficult for us to sustain this responsibly. So today, in the spirit of transparency, we want to just start this conversation about what it means to do this in today's age. So even with a very old facility, for those of you who have visited it, we're trying to make the best of it, and over the past few months have made some significant progress. We've been focused heavily on operational improvements, compliance work, communication, accountability, and cross-department communication. We're really super proud of the work our volunteers and our staff and our partners are doing together. One example of something we've been working hard on is our intake and biosecurity process. So intake in a shelter is one of the highest risk areas because animals are coming in and you don't know if they're coming in sick or what's going on with them. These illnesses are often what you read about in the news. They're the things that lead to lots of euthanasia rates. They also lead to shelters being closed for weeks and months sometimes. Over the past few months, we have strengthened our vaccination protocols, our intake procedures, and sanitation systems significantly. We're also investing in staff development, something we hadn't done in a while, making sure, working with like the Department of Agriculture and other groups to make sure our staff are up to date on processes. It is showing huge results. I'm proud, knock on wood, if there is any here, to let you know that for 5 months we have been parvo-free in the shelter, which is huge for an open admission shelter. Parvo is a very highly contagious disease that often results in a lot of euthanasias. And so for 5 months, we have been able to isolate any cases and have not had any spread within the shelter. We're also seeing a lot of progress with our community engagement and support. We just had our Walk for the Animals event last weekend. I know I saw some folks in this room there, so thank you for supporting us. We had over 350 people walk with their animals, which was really exciting. Another big accomplishment this year is we have already, from our animal services partners, received over 150 neonatal kittens. Kittens that are just a few days, few weeks old sometimes. Often these kittens will be humanely euthanized because the cost of care is really intensive and we don't have round-the-clock support. We are excited to share that we have, over the past 2 months, trained over 75 community volunteers to be fosters for these. All 150 of these kittens that have come in our door have been put into foster care within an hour of them arriving in the shelter. That is absolutely huge. So we have a network that goes out. And an example I can give of this that I think might make it more real is there was a woman named Kathy who was in our parking lot a few weeks ago crying. She had a basket full of cute little kittens that she had found under her shed in her yard. And she told me, I saw her outside and asked her what was going on, and she told me she didn't want to give us the kittens because she had heard the shelter euthanizes everything that comes in the door. So I was able to explain to her the process of how we're doing things. She handed over those kittens. Tears of sadness turned into tears of joy. And she was, thrilled to see that we were able to get those kittens out so quickly. She has actually since adopted 2 of the kittens. Our medical team works really closely to make sure they're vaccinated, they get spayed and neutered, and then they go out for adoption. And it's stories like that I love because it shows the building of trust in the community so people feel like they can come to us. Community demand is continuing to grow. Last year, we saw about an 8% increase in the number of animals coming through our doors. We're seeing, don't have the exact numbers yet for this year, but it's at least that, if not more. We are seeing a lot of things contributing to this. Rising veterinarian costs. I don't know if you've been to the veterinarian with any of your animals lately, but it's getting very expensive. Increased medical complexity with animals. We're seeing more behavior support needs, higher sanitation standards, which are very important and very appropriate, but it costs more to do that. We're seeing lots of housing instability affecting the animals coming in. Lots of animals coming to us because of evictions and also breed and size restrictions in apartments and other housing. So people are turning to us for support. And then last, another factor we are seeing is that a lot of people who were working from home during the pandemic are now back in the workplace, and now their dogs or cats are home alone for 10 or 12 hours and don't have the care that they need. And so what we're finding is, and it's very similar to what you just mentioned with the library's presentation, we're not just a medical facility or a crisis response center, but we're also a social service organization for a lot of the folks coming in. In terms of changes, not only is it increased demand, but it's also the cost of sheltering that's really increased. We are competing with a lot of counties around us to get people who have experience in animal welfare. Our starting wages have been a lot lower, so it's been more difficult for us to recruit and train people and keep them. Benefits are rising, sanitation costs are rising. Just this past month alone, our cost of cleaning our kennels was up about 20%, just because of the cost of the goods to do so. And also, of course, we have an aging building, which we are trying to make the best of and encouraging the staff to be proud to work there, but there are a lot of costs associated with doing things in a less than ideal facility. APS continues as a nonprofit to be committed to the mission and partnering with all of you. We will continue to provide direct financial support for the shelter operations. Right now, we're funding a lot of key positions, helping bridge operational gaps. Our hope is, though, that the philanthropy will supplement the dollars that are being raised, right, and not just kind of cover the operational cost, which is what we're doing right now. Philanthropy is variable, right? It fluctuates, and we want the county to have something stable in terms of operational costs. In terms of sustainability for us, what we are thinking about with our budget is not increasing, creating new programs or anything like that, but it's really about trying to find a way to build a sustainable operational model. And we are deeply committed to that and want your partnership in doing that. So I'm going to stop there. I've got some cute photos up there of some of our recent animals that have come our way. I invite all of you. I appreciated Dwayne coming out and seeing us, but if anybody else wants a tour of the shelter, wants to see more, learn more, adopt a baby kitten, because we have many right now, welcome you coming by. Do you guys have anything to add?
And I would like, Captain Manning, I would like, if you can take a few minutes and talk about any trends that you have seen with the calls or whatever it may be. If you have some information you'd like to share too, we'd welcome that.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. First thing I want to do is give a comment and basically a compliment to Ms. Bluth. I've been a part of Animal Services for just over 5 years, and I can tell you in the last 3 months that I can positively identify such growth and change and only strengthening our partnership. So I want to commend Ms. Bluth for that. I have seen a positive impact in transparency, organizational skills, and policy change, staff change, things of that nature. And biggest for us, I guess, is communication. To have a successful partnership, obviously, communication is critical and vital. We've had some really healthy conversations. So I am incredibly excited at the direction that the APS is headed. Some trends that we are noticing, and you have to take into focus and understand that we only have one county shelter for all the city and county of Durham. To put that in perspective, I think Wake County has 4. And I granted that we don't have quite the population that they did, but in the last 10 years, I think our population has grown by estimated 100,000 people. That's a lot. So to put that in perspective, Animal Services with Essentially, with the staffing levels that we're at now, I think nine officers or deputies on the road are averaging 1,000 calls a month or more. Last month, it was almost 1,200 calls a month. That's a lot, because with more people come more pets. So our call volume has skyrocketed. And what that means is their intake is going to skyrocket, because the main place we go is our partnership with APS. So they're still in that inadequate facility that's aging, and I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. We all know that, and that's a positive thing, but we're not quite there yet. So that creates a hardship on them, as it does us as well. And with that, the biggest, I think, and literally this past week and this week, is the declaration of potentially dangerous and dangerous dogs. Because with more people and more pets, there's more interaction with citizens. Some of those are unwelcomed interactions, and that's unfortunate as well. That's probably the two biggest trends that we are noticing. And we have to talk about, just like yesterday, we had 6 sheep that got loose. And granted, we are not a very rural county anymore, but there are parts. But we have to have a location to take those livestock animals. And we have to be adaptable to that, and so does the shelter. And that takes a lot of coordination and cooperation, and I think Ms. Bluth has demonstrated that quite a bit. But we had to get very creative in how we address things of that nature, and make sure that we're within the guidelines of the State Agriculture Board as well.
I think the last comment I'll make very briefly, this is an organization of service that really thrives on volunteers. And I know we know that, but I really want to emphasize that point. One of the times, I think the first time I met Ms. Bluth and took the tour, came back home, and not too long after that, my wife and kids signed up as volunteers at the shelter. They went through the training recently, so it's a seamless process. It's easy to do, and it is a tremendous help to the Durham community to serve as a volunteer. Somehow my family didn't come home with a pet. I don't know how.
Send them by today, Dwayne. Send them by.
But it's a tremendous benefit to have those volunteers serving.
Thank you for this presentation, and I love animals, and if I wasn't allergic to cats, I would have a cat. Had cats when I was little, so animals are precious, and we have to take care of them. And so I appreciate all the work that you all do and the volunteers. And so I think my question is more directed to ACM Brinson and County Manager Hager as to when are we going to get this new animal shelter built? Where is the status? When we went on a tour last year, and I realized that is a very old building, and we shouldn't have animals or the people who are helping the animals in that space. That building was built for a different time when people didn't have the view of animals that they need to be taken care of and stay healthy. It was the dog pound, right? And you just take the dogs to the pound, and okay, whatever happens, happens. But now we know better, and so I'm just curious as to what is the status of Durham County getting a new animal shelter.
Commissioner Burton, we've got an update, and it's probably better done via email. I can send this to the board. So the animal shelter, we have gone through the design stages for that. It's a process we're working through. The next steps, the board is going to have an architectural design contract at one of the upcoming board meetings. So we've been through that process. That is coming to the board very, very soon. Been working on the Junction Road site. It's raw land, so the design and construction of the animal shelter. It's expected to take about 4 years, so it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow, right? It's been a lengthy process, and we're working through it. But those are the biggest next steps that are coming to the board, right? It's on the agenda. Go ahead.
I was going to say the information that ACM Brinson is reading from is also in your board materials. we asked General Services to give an update on the investments made in the animal shelter's current location. But from the capital project perspective, we've been working on this for the past couple of years. And that item that Dwayne talked about, it outlines all of those details, which started back in May 25 with advanced planning and study. And moving forward, there was a draft report issued in 2026 in February. There was a budget meeting. And some updates about just sort of next steps. I think part of the decision the board will make in some future conversations is whether or not it's phased, because the challenge of the large animal needs that we need to service compared to where we are right now in footprint has caused a significant pricing increase. And so we will bring those items back to the board. But there's a lot of site design work underway at Junction Road and getting it ready for us to move forward with those steps. So as Dwayne said, we are on plan with bringing it to the board. It is a much slower process that we'd like. I wish we could snap our fingers and it be done. Also within the meeting materials, you'll find just the investments we've made. It's a listing that General Services shared. It may not have all of the dollar amounts there, but it does show what's in process, what's been completed in 2026, as well as things that have happened in 2025. And there's a companion document that's not included that we'll upload that will show the dollars invested in that space. There's a lot of coordination between the Office of the Sheriff, the Animal Protection Services, as well as General Services to help support the other family members that we all value so much. And so I thank all of them for all of their efforts.
Thank you for that. And the other question I had is when we have dangerous animals, because I heard you all talk about that, are they rehabilitated, or is it just assumed that, okay, there's nothing we can do for them and they're euthanized or put to sleep? Like, it's what occurs in those situations?
Sure, I think that's a two-part answer. A lot of it depends on the location of the animal. So if it's a citizen's private dog, say for example, and it's declared potentially dangerous, as long as they meet the state standard guidelines and rules and don't violate those, then they're able to keep that pet at their home. They just have to have adequate shelter. It has to be secured. If it's off property, for example, it has to be muzzled. It has to have adequate signage, things of that nature. But if it's actually impounded or surrendered and then it becomes part of the shelter, I think that decision comes up to the shelter.
Yeah, so once that animal comes to the shelter, one of the things that we do is spend as much time as possible gathering information, right? So we don't like to, an animal comes in and say, okay, this is the outcome. But we have a staff who is trained to assess the animal behaviorally and medically. And we look at different options that we have with the resources we have. So of course, if there is an opportunity to have a better pathway for that dog, whether it's to go temporarily to foster care and then adoption, we will do that. If sometimes that is not the case, then we need to make the decision to do a humane euthanasia. It depends on the resources, the dog's case, what's going on. We try to be as transparent as possible with the community and potential adopters. So if we have a dog who has a history, we are very transparent with them about what they're adopting potentially, and making sure that they're okay with that and that we're providing resources and support.
And I know we have a dangerous dog appeal board, so it goes through that procedure.
Yes, ma'am. The citizen, anytime their dog is declared potentially or dangerous, they can appeal that within 3 days, and I think there's 10 days to have it scheduled, and then they can go through the appeal process there, and then that board determines if it's sustained or if it's overturned.
Thank you for that. It's good to know that we try to do whatever we can to make sure the pets are rehabilitated and are treated humanely. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Vice Chair Alam.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for all the work you do. As someone who, as Commissioner Burton mentioned, loves animals, I am allergic to cats, but I still have had cats and continue to show up to the animal shelter, much to my husband's dismay, because he will get pictures of, can I adopt? I still have a grudge against him because there was one cat, Hoover, that I wanted to adopt, and he didn't say yes until the next day he said yes. And when I showed up to the shelter, there was a mom and her son adopting him. And it was tough, but I just want to thank y'all for the important work, because obviously we love all the cute and cuddly pieces of our animal shelter, but it's also a public health service that y'all are providing to keep our community safe through the vaccination clinics, through the low-cost spay and neuter. That's monthly, or is it quarterly, the spay and neuter?
The spay and neuter. So with animals in the community, we have several grants that allow us to do that. We partner with local veterinarians. It happens every month. We're usually doing anywhere from 4 to 5 events around. People can just go to our website and pick a slot and sign up.
That's really great. And I'm really excited that, we hopefully are moving forward and on track with this new shelter, because I think all of us have been able to go on a tour of the shelter, and not just for the animals, but even for the staff and the volunteers working in that space. It can be slippery floors, cold, super cold in the winter, super hot in the summer, especially since most of it is open air. And I think having a new space will just be beneficial for everyone for that public health aspect. And I'm glad that it's going to be near Junction Road, because that's closer to my home. But also I think Deputy Manning, you and I have discussed this maybe at one of the AWAC meetings, it's also closer to those pesky huskies off of Holloway Street that I know that y'all have had multiple complaints about that I have seen. I don't know if you guys have driven on 98. There's these 2 or 3 huskies that are wolf size that are just constantly running back and forth on Holloway, on 98. So maybe being closer to the shelter, being closer there will help them. But to my questions, so state mandates, what is required for counties to provide related to animal welfare? And I know that APS, because you guys are able to fundraise and get a lot of resources from the community too, but you're also subsidizing a lot of the services that the county should be providing through state mandates. Wondering what kind of is APS is doing, because APS wants to, and then also what are the services that our county services that APS is helping fill the gap for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mentioned the Department of Agriculture earlier, and that is who does the regulations for our shelter. We actually just had them in for the first time for an all-day, all-staff training, which was a big learning process for all of us. You may have seen in past documents, and I'm happy to share with it, we are evaluated by the Department of Agriculture annually. They come in, they do an inspection. The past couple of times they have come, we have been on the verge of some fines, mainly due to some things to do with the building, but more than that, they're just compliance issues around making sure there's shade screens out on our outdoor play yards, making sure that animals have access to water at all times, even when their kennels are being cleaned, which doesn't sound so simple, but it's actually a little trickier in practice, right? Making sure that things like towels and linens that we use for bedding are in closed plastic containers that are disinfected every day. regulations about the types of things that we use to clean floors. So there are many regulations. I'm excited to share that we were falling short in the past, but we just did a courtesy visit, which is basically where we invite them out to kind of go behind the scenes with us about a month ago, and they said they saw huge improvement in all of our processes. That is something we are committed to because that is like the basic cost of care for these animals. APS obviously does extra things like you were talking about for the community, but we are increasingly supplementing the costs of doing this right in terms of cleaning supplies, storage bins for all the linens and things like that. So, yeah. And I can send you all the regulations if you want. It's good nighttime reading.
And I see Attorney Lovelace joined us because my wheels have been churning since yesterday because Commissioner Jacobs said something to me while we were out about animals and individuals within the jail and like therapy options. I know there would be an expense of like transporting, but wondering, could there potentially be any partnership with APS and Durham County Jail to provide like animal time for our individuals within the jail because that is like a form of therapy and healing as well of could we bring animals to jail to oh right.
Good morning, commissioners. Vice Chair Alarm, I'm going to say we're kindred spirits. I'm usually one of the ones around the sheriff's office. Hey, Sheriff, what do you think of this idea? Chief, can't we do this? And what do you think of this idea? I, too, have seen online the videos of, training therapy dogs and things like that. It's an interesting idea, and I'm going to do what I typically do. I'm going to take what your thought and ideas and share it with Sheriff and with Chief. Not something we've ever done before. I've seen other places do it. The challenge would be, of course, the structure of our jail, the number of individuals with the increase in population we've had, but we're always open to unique ideas. Whether we can do it now, if that's something, hey, 4 or 5 years down the road, it might be better. Don't know, but I will definitely share that idea with our jail command staff and with Sheriff. We welcome the ideas. There's a lot of innovative stuff happening, not only within our jail, in other jails in this state, but also throughout the nation. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. So I'll share that idea with Sheriff and with Chief Ellaby.
Great, thank you. Because I feel like it'd be mutually beneficial. That I'm sure the animals would love all the extra cuddles and playtime as well as the services that they would be providing to.
Vice Chair Lum, that's something also we're looking at doing with the youth home. We need to work with the attorney's office. Ms. Bluth and I have talked about that. Back when Angela Nunn was here before she retired, we were looking at doing that for the kids in the youth home too. So that's an idea worth exploring that we'll continue to talk about and see if it will work. But I'm with you. I'm all for therapeutic activities. I like that idea.
I also think there's an interesting opportunity for workforce development. So there are a lot of shelters around the country that are using, partnering with nonprofits like Young People Aging Out of Foster Care, formerly incarcerated community members, to provide lots of job training, which benefits the shelter and the animals, and also has that added benefit of the therapy, but also gives people real job skills, which is important.
Great. And then I have 2 final quick questions. What are the risks, like if for public health wise and community wise, if like the shelter is not able to keep up like current operations because of rising expenses? And then also I know we hear constantly from the community, and even myself, like oftentimes people can only go and visit the shelter during the weekends. People are working and there's limited hours on the weekends of what would it take to provide more services on the weekend?
Yeah, so that is a great question, and definitely something that has come to my attention since I've started. We would love to be open more hours, expand our Saturday hours. We've talked about this before, being open on Sunday. The community needs us on the weekend. When we talk about equity and access to services, that's really important. Being open later in the evening would be also very helpful for people who are working. The issue right now is just a simple one of budgets, right, and math, and not being able to afford the staff for those extra hours. But that is something we are committed to. So if we have the money to do so, that is priority number one, is getting us open more often.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you. This is really a great presentation and discussion. I really appreciate it. And it's there's so many competing needs in our community. But I do, I just want to lift up the partnership between animal services, animal control, the Office of the Sheriff, and the APS and the county is really a very unique partnership, and also the support of the community, because the amount of fundraising that the APS does, as well as the number of volunteers, it is saving the county a lot of money, because otherwise that would be coming out of our budget. We have, there's several, program areas where we partner with nonprofits. For instance, our Durham Center for Senior Life, our senior services are also provided by a nonprofit, but in a county building. So similar to APS being in a county building, but you are providing this service to our community. And I do believe that there are a lot of things that that a nonprofit or the community can do better than Durham County government. So I'm really grateful to APS for the work that you do. So, and I also really appreciate the approach that both of you, both of your entities have around, you talked about this, a holistic approach to animal welfare and animal services, because we dropped our fees. Since I'm a county commissioner, we used to charge fees. We've eliminated that, just like we've eliminated library fines, because recognizing these barriers and also the importance that animals play in people's lives around social and emotional health. I mean, pets are people's family members, and when poverty is an issue, their economic issues or things like that, it should not be the reason that somebody can't have a pet. So I just really want to lift up the approach that you all take. And so one thing is, I love what you just said about a pipeline for justice involved or disconnected youth or foster youth. And so do you need a connection to, for instance, our DSS director around foster youth, and also our justice services director around justice involved residents? Because I know Dwayne could help facilitate those connections and partnerships. Yeah.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
I will follow up with him.
And the issue, and I'm looking at the list of repairs. I just want to give a shout out to General Services, because they have accomplished, and also to the county manager. I know when we were, I think it was last year, at the shelter, and the county manager was like, we have got to do something about this. And I really want to applaud you, Manager Hager, because when I look at that list, a lot of repairs and improvements have taken place. And Dwayne, thank you for your help with that as well. So that is huge.
And I would like to say, I just looked at this sheet, it's over $260,000 of investments that have occurred since that period. And we've always invested in the shelter. It's an old facility, and older facilities will always have situations that need repair. But over the last, I guess since last fiscal year, there has been an insurgence of dollars.
And I think it is the reality of this timeline around building the new animal shelter. I want to say, though, as somebody who first became aware of the animal need for a new shelter 14 years ago, when I became a county commissioner, we have got to speed up that timeline. So one of my questions is, I know nobody has to answer this now, but I would really be interested in knowing how can we prioritize and expedite this. I also really concerned that we want to make sure, and I'm sure rising costs are going to be an issue. Everything is going to be costing more, but it's really important that we get this right. We need to build a shelter that is going to last at least for the next 50 years. Like, we can't be investing all of this time and money in something that is going to be obsolete when it opens its doors. And so I guess I know Perry isn't here, but I'm just I would like to know, for instance, when was the last time that Animal Services and also APS actually was at the table with our staff or the people who are designing this? Have you all recently had any input or conversations?
Mm-hmm. This has been a shared ownership throughout the whole process because we wanted to cross the finish line. And so we knew having stakeholder engagement from the Office of the Sheriff, APS, as well as animal shelter staff was crucial to getting us to a point that the public would support with the newly designed shelters. So I do feel as though we have additional opportunity because our planning is greater than our ability right now to implement. And so we'll be back, but I'll have them respond as well. But I see by the head nods that my remarks are in line with what happened.
Yes. So there's a monthly meeting that I've been attending and have gotten up to speed on the project. It has been incredibly valuable to be at those meetings because the new shelter will be bigger, which is exciting, but also means that APS is going to have to grow and plan for that. So having the advance notice and being at the table for those conversations has been very helpful for us organizationally and a board of directors to think about how do we start planning now so that we can provide all the services that building will allow us to, which is exciting.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Are you guys involved in those meetings as well?
We have preliminary meetings, yes. It's been a little bit for myself personally for those meetings, but it's my understanding that members of the Sheriff's Office have been a part of those, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear that. So just anyway, I know, when will this come back to us to be able to push it along? The design process or whatever needs to come back.
The next steps, we will come back to the board either in, let me follow up with that question because we're very close for a follow-up. And so, I don't want to answer on the fly, but I do know it's within the next 2 months because we had to go back and refine the design work because of the project scope and our ability to move that level forward. So we'll be back, but we'll have a response by tomorrow.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, it would be great if it could come back in July or August, just so that we're not the barrier in keeping it going. I was wondering also about how things are going with TVNR. Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. The ordinance that is around trying to control our community cats. Do you have any kind of tracking data with that, or any sense of how that is working?
I can speak briefly to that, and maybe Captain Penner can address it as well. For us, we've seen little change from that. The ordinance is obviously in place, and we're abiding by that, and citizens are. I know that there is another nonprofit organization that does utilize that quite a bit, but they don't include us on that standpoint. So I don't know if that has affected the shelter at all in their intake, but we have seen very, very little, any kind of hard data that would show us that it's effective or it's not effective at this point.
I think I would agree with that. We don't have hard data yet. We do get more citizens asking us questions about it, so we have partners that we link them up with, which is good to know people are asking about it, becoming aware of it, but it really hasn't affected our day-to-day operations too much. But that's data we should be definitely analyzing and looking at.
Thank you. And I agree that with, having 100,000 people, there's going to be more animals in our community, 100,000 more people. It would be interesting, as we move forward to look at the trend data and even what are any kind of best practices that other shelters are using around the country that we might learn from. And I do appreciate that we try to not kill animals. I know it is a reality that does happen, and but obviously that would be our goal, to not be a no-kill shelter, right? Ideally. But again, thank you so much for all that you're doing for our community.
All right. Thank you all very much. Extremely important program here. So not seeing any other comments. Oh, go ahead.
Just one quick question. Wondering, now that we have people moving into RTP area and actually living there, have you seen an increase of animal welfare services needed in that area, since that's not been a place that we've had, people's pets and stuff in RTP, or not yet?
It's kind of I don't think there's any hard data for that. I don't think it's been analyzed yet. I think it can all be contributed to. We have definitely seen a rise in call volume, and it can be, so that's a mixed blessing and a curse, and that could be contributed to maybe the recent development in RTP, but also Durham is being developed all over the city and county. So I think it's a mixture there, but we are definitely seeing an increase in call volume for sure.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay.
I did want to follow up on we're probably watching the same videos online, Attorney Lovelace. Yeah. But it is really inspiring in terms of, I've seen, again, this is from online, but programs that are focused on cats who actually live in detention centers or prisons, and just and it would be interesting to look at the data on how it does improve behavior and teach skills, things like that. And then there's the model of therapy dogs who come into other nursing homes or hospitals, who again, it's more related to therapeutic, but the idea of having actual something like cats that people are responsible for, that's a whole other dimension around learning responsibility and skills. But anyway, I think anything that we could do would be probably beneficial. I think we all know the data around how, when you're petting an animal, how it affects your heart rate, it just helps calm you down and things like that, and just like the unconditional love that animals have is really transformative. So that would be exciting, and hopefully not 4 to 5 years.
All right. Thank you all very much. Was there any last words that we wanted to say? No? All right. Thank you all very much for this presentation. Okay. Next item on our agenda is the future policy discussions. I'll hand it over to Manager Hager. I think it's just one for her. Oh, wait.
Commissioners, just want to share with you information on upcoming policy conversations. Staff has shared with you lots of information in response to questions that you had about the budget. It was a tremendous effort to try to respond, but there are some areas, although we gave information, that do require additional follow-up, and some of the follow-up is a part of our standard work plan efforts. And so I have a list before you based on some of the topics that you shared and talked about. We've been emailing you responses as soon as just a second ago. I just sent you one that you probably haven't had a chance to open. It was a question about the ARPA Homeless Services Grant and our medical street outreach efforts that's been coordinated with Housing for New Hope and our partners with CPRC. So it's lots of information we've tried to share, but we want to make sure in future conversations we give it the appropriate time for additional dialogue. So in looking at the list, and we'll email this to you, and there may be areas beyond what we have. I know it doesn't cover all things. And in this current Is it unplugged? Let's see. Is that working now? Okay, I'll hold my head a certain way. All right. In this current climate, there is so much change happening. Last year, or this current fiscal year, was very tough managing shifts in federal policies, some changes in state policies, but it required a different level of conversation with the board. And as you may recall, we started in September of last fiscal year with board updates, and those continued on a frequency that was a little bit more than we had done in the past. So we will continue those updates quarterly, whether it's in writing with the standard updates that come from the board, the Budget and Management Service Department, as well as our formal conversations with the board with detailed fiscal deep dives all throughout the year. So that will continue. In addition to that, although we will cover broad overviews of the budget, we'll have human services agencies focused discussions even more, with our budget focused on statutorily to support our social services and public health areas, as well as many other areas that are federally and state funded. We will continue those dialogues with the board quarterly to make sure you know and are aware of the nuances that may impact our residents, and if there are ways that we can change processes to be responsive with our county partners and other organizations as we navigate this shifting landscape. With this document, there are links to examples of what that looked like in previous conversations, and for your review. We will have some conversations on our capital improvement plan, which is ongoing, and much of this work has been underway probably since last fiscal year with our CIP, and but we're at a stage we need to make some final decisions so that we can have our adopted document complete. And so these are draft timelines that may shift. I know our budget team is probably saying she did not make sure that date worked with us, but we do have some items that we need to bring to you that are some updates with the goal of trying to finalize this early fall. Just because of where we are with other debt financing and our need to plan for next fiscal year. There will be ongoing conversations about transportation, and we'll work in concert with the city. Right now we have a placeholder in August to come back to the board to share possibly what some of those future conversations are. We have a youth-focused RFP framework, and we'll give some updates prior to August. But the intent is for the placeholder that we put into the budget, which was about $500,000, it was $500,000, that we shared the framework for that RFP and also what the process will look like. We've had many lessons learned and very effective approaches from our prior RFP processes that have occurred. In these times, we want to make sure we strike the right balance of where our dollars will support community gaps. There's a bullet about the county department's inflow mapping to support housing security efforts. That's an area that supports the strategic homeless initiative, but it will be focused on county departments and what we're doing and how the inflow processes are to give the board an update. We had conversations, I guess it was in May, late April, early May, and so there is some work that will happen that we can share by August to share with the board those efforts. With economic development, that's always a focus of the board, and we do have conversations with our partner organizations. We gave to the board some benchmark data about how we compare to a couple of other jurisdictions, Mecklenburg County and Wake County, how they support partner organizations. And so we are looking to come back formally to the board in September with some updates in those areas. In September also, we will also have some conversations with Alliance and other community partners as it relates to behavioral health updates, as well as some updates on our community intervention efforts. And we've talked some in the budget work session about our partner efforts with the city of Durham, and I'm sure we'll come before September, but we wanted to formally have that as a time on the calendar. And then one of the final bullets, but most important, and it seems to be ongoing, is just our efforts to look at organizational efficiency and effectiveness and how we are able to shift and streamline and become responsive in this current fiscal climate. And so in October of 2026 and February of 2027, we have placeholders to come to share efforts that are underway, process improvements that have occurred, as well as share some quarterly benchmark information on the KPIs. There's been increased focus, as you know, on our KPIs and our performance measures, and we have that placeholder, so that will occur in October. Now, again, this is not a full list. I'm sure you will have others. Just wanted to share some of the policy conversations that are happening. There's so much going on, so of course our agendas will have other areas, but just wanted to share those updates.
Commissioner Burton.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, that we're going to have these discussions about these various areas, particularly around economic development and youth-focused RFP and the capital improvement plan, because I was looking over the email, the responses. I believe Commissioner Jacobs and Commissioner Valentine asked about economic development, the schools, etc., because it really is helpful when we as commissioners go out into the community. We can give really good explanations to our residents as to where their tax dollars are going. I know there's been a lot of discussion around monies that we give to companies and economic development, and why is this money going into these areas? And it's because we're trying to create a strong workforce here in Durham County. We're trying to make sure our economy is strong, and these partners help us with that. So I'm looking forward to these discussions. So thank you for doing this.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this outline, and also just the fact that the first two items being quarterly, focuses being quarterly, the financial fiscal updates and human services landscape. Just knowing what we're facing and the challenges, I think that is, I appreciate, Manager Hager, that you are thinking ahead and knowing that we're really going to need to be staying on top of these things, not just for Durham County government, but really for our whole community. You know, all of the areas, I guess what I would ask, I'm sitting here thinking about some of the things that would fit into those frameworks that I had also requested, and I'm thinking for number 2 on the human services, it would be great that, like, having Lincoln come and present also during that discussion would be good, because they are part of our system of care for our most vulnerable residents. And it may also be fitting to ask Duke Regional Board or, you know, leadership to come and also present, because they are part of our kind of community healthcare system. And then related to the capital improvement plan, I'm wondering if that would also be time to get an update from DFI. Are there any updates on some of the county properties that they've been doing? And even the, I'm not sure when the studies will be done around the DPS properties as well. Well, I can't. It is finicky.
We'll make sure we have a comprehensive view of all the areas. So although our goal is to try to finalize our CIP plan during that time frame, we do want to make sure we have a comprehensive list of all this outstanding. And there have been conversations about having coordinated CIPs between the schools, the city, and county for some areas. We may not resolve all of those areas, but for our work to move forward with our plan, we'll anchor that. But we also, during this period between now and October, hope to put a master list of those community discussions that need to occur, such as what do we do with public property that's available, and how should those properties be used, whether it's in either of the entities, because those conversations are happening. And so I do feel that by that time frame, we would have some updates from DFI as they partner with Durham Public Schools on some of their properties, and we'll definitely make that as a part of the conversation.
Okay. Great. And I was interesting to see, I had asked for an update on how much of the bond money had been spent. And I don't know if, you know, some of it may be encumbered or, you know, related to, for instance, the DSA project, but there was quite a bit of money that was still not spent in the 2022 bond money. So I think that's also going to be really important for us to track that and include that in that conversation. What is going on? Okay. But yeah.
I believe we did respond, and it's important to note, although there may not be activity for a period, there is work underway, and so we can get more of those detailed, nuanced points so that we'll see that we're in process. I do feel, based on where we are, we're spending the money in a way that shows that we borrow the right amount, because there have been periods when we've borrowed an amount and it took us much longer to expend it. So I do feel that we will expend it within the 7-year timeline, if not before. But we can get more information on those areas.
But I think it reinforces that this year was not the right time to do a bond when we still had not spent all of the DPS funding. I mean, even the ones that are related to facilities and maintenance, there were a lot of schools listed on that list.
So it is a timing issue, but again, we want to make sure if it's in the pipeline and it may not have been encumbered, it still could have been a good time frame. For us, it is also looking at, when you ask to do a bond, have you fleshed out totally those projects so that when you approve it, you know that the scope is nearly close to what you expect when you put the shovel in the ground and you start building. You don't want major surprises, which can happen in this environment with costs, with tariffs, et cetera. But to the best that you can, you want to make sure you have those projects shovel ready. So to your point, timing wise, we need more in order to get ready for another referendum.
Okay. And then related to the youth focus framework, I think it's going to be, that would be an opportunity to get an update. I'm thinking about the things the county's already investing in related to youth, making sure that that's part of our understanding of that issue. And so one is getting an update from the RISE Center, because we've made a big investment in that. And then also an update from the City County Office on Youth as a part of that discussion. And then the mapping, the inflow mapping, I think is going to be super important. And again, just things that are tangential to that are, anything that we've learned from the update of our sequential intercept map, that's happening soon. That's a very cross-cutting systems analysis. The Familiar Faces initiative, that again has been working on that, and also obviously just an update on how the day center pilot is going, whatever data might be available then. And then related to economic development, what comes to mind for me is the university games, because we are sponsoring that, $300,000. And just kind of from an economic development perspective, I think that would be good. And then number 8, the behavioral health. We got one of the things that we got yesterday was the annual report for Recovery International. It would be great for us to do a tour, a field trip like we did yesterday, over to related to this item, to see our 24-hour crisis response center. And I don't know if the 911 center study and kind of that whole discussion, expanding HEART, because that really is the context for that, is around our behavioral health crisis system. And then organizational effectiveness, I think the work, that is very exciting to me, the work that you all are doing in that area. And I don't know, this is not quite the same thing, but just thinking about like our big driving cost centers, like one is the jail costs. I feel like we really need to focus on that, especially hearing that we're more like $300 a day in our jail costs, and the impact of the rising numbers at our detention center. I'm really concerned about that, what the effect it's going to have on Durham County government, and also the bigger issues around the Durham Public Schools budget, and how we kind of, Commissioner Burton has brought that up about how we try to start working together on approaching that budget differently. So those are just some of the big things that come to mind that kind of fit in to this framework. This looks like a really good framework, and we can plug a lot of other things into it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I will send the soft copy to the board with the edits that we've heard this morning, so we can work towards finalizing this within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Did anyone else?
Oh, hello? Okay, it works. I agree with everything that's been said. More of my comments are related to the budget for this cycle, which is going to be after, during the add and delete conversation, right? So I'll save my comments for then.
Yeah, I think mine are probably closer to the add and delete kind of piece. All right. So did Commissioner Burton, did you have anything on this? Okay. I do look forward to this, especially number 7, the economic development. And again, this may verge into the add and delete, but I'm really interested in the, you know what, I'll wait for the add and delete kind of piece there. All right. I'm a little further away from the mic. Yeah, I was just a little further. I think I was just turned facing the manager, and that's why. But I'll lean in. We're going to do a little bit more. So, all right. So that's this. That is the future policy and discussions. Should we go right into the?
We can go right into the add and delete, and then come back to the ordinance. I mean that.
The ordinance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but we can come.
Let's do the ordinance.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Great. No worries.
Ordinance.
Just want to note there are a few technical changes to the budget ordinance. Literally, it's 3 words that we're taking out of the ordinance. I'm not going to show it to you because it's not really, it's a section F portion of the ordinance that had been written where it gave the manager the ability to move money between funds with a report to the board without, and it's related to pay funding, like COLA increases and things. We have never moved money between funds without a budget amendment going to the board. So we simply took out that ability in the ordinance because it's not what we do anyway. We always, moving money between funds is a budget amendment to the board. So we just simply took out 3 words saying that it could, because we don't do it. The other minor issue we are dealing with in the ordinance is related to stating commissioner pay for the chair and for our commissioners, because the state law advises us to do that, and we looked at every other major county in the state, Mecklenburg County, and all it says is the chair makes this much, commissioners make this much, and this is how much for travel allowance, and this is how much for your travel allowance and technology allowance. That's all. It'll be 1 paragraph in the ordinance stating that, and that follows state law, and that's it. And I want to thank Jonathan Pica in our office, who went to a class and heard from Carla Melanzi, if you know that person's name, at the School of Government at UNC, and then he picked up on that, did a little research, and relayed that to the manager. So that's it with the budget ordinance. No foundational change.
Okay. I mean, that works. We'll see that language next week, right?
Yes. What we'll do, we'll send out the draft ordinance after today's conversations.
Okay.
And then you can weigh in if there are any additional areas you would like to refine.
Okay.
And when you send that to us, will you send us, is it like going to actually be like all our amounts and stuff, or just like the language? Because I know we had conversations about this last year as well, of just what historically has been the difference between chair and commissioners and like that type of thing for like past years versus what it is now, and then.
So it would just show the fiscal year 25-26 salary, and then it would just show
just the 26-27. This is not. It's an interesting question. You're asking historically the budget document. We show the rest of the 300 pages. The budget document you receive is not absolutely required by law. That's extra information. The budget ordinance is the legal document that's only about 8 pages long, and that only shows 26-27 numbers. It will not have a comparison in that document of previous commissioner salaries, because that's just not where you put that information.
But we can get that for
if you want.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The next conversation is about our add and delete list. And I do have before you, based on previous conversations, potential adjustments to our budget. There have been discussions about potentially supporting Durham Public Schools at a higher level with some support from realigned dollars within Durham Public Schools. The intent was to help address the minimum wage or the livable wage amount. This amount that we're proposing is $2,650,000. That would be matched by Durham Public Schools at the same amount through their internal realignments of $2,650,000, which could be used towards addressing the classified salaries amount. It would not get them to the level that's requested, but with both amounts, it would increase it by $1. The board's conversation talked about throughout this whole process of us looking at a long-term strategy and how we address the livable wage. There are different levels throughout the community. The question becomes, what can we afford, and what can our taxpayers, what is their willingness to support? So this is a longer conversation. The next bullet there shows an amount to restore the capital budget line item. A few years ago, we realigned an amount that we had increased to support some operating expenses, and there's $1 million to support Durham Public Schools recommended at this point as a point of discussion. This would support infrastructure, technology, capital type expenses. There is a remaining amount that is there, about $650,000 to support our Department of Social Services and Public Health areas because of all of the reductions that they have faced. There are some program areas that need some support. In addition to some reductions, they also had to handle a county local funded reduction, and so this does restore some of that, because we do know with some of the policy shifts there are dollars that are potentially needed for food insecurity, housing insecurity, and some other spaces that and medical support that social services and public health are on the front line of doing. These total realignments would result in a $4.2 million increase to the budget that is proposed at this juncture, which would result in a 0.5 cent property tax increase beyond what's recommended. And so the recommended budget had a 2-cent property tax increase. This would result in another ½ cent, so it would be a 2.5-cent property tax increase recommended.
Okay, let's just start with discussions about this. Thank you, Manager Hager. I really appreciate this. I appreciate the team, and it looks like some creative work and some discussions have happened, you know, with DPS and with social services, public health, everything. So I appreciate this. This is a really good, I think this is a really good start here. Commissioner Burton, then we'll go to Vice Chair Alum, Commissioner Jacobs, and then I'll speak afterwards as well.
Yes, thank you, Manager Hager, for sending this to us. I had a couple of things. So the first thing I want to say, I just emailed all of you the original budget that the superintendent presented to the school board, and in that original ask, it was for the expansion needs, he asked for let's just round it, $2.8 million. That was in the original ask. It was $2,774,874. And that was the intention of getting, because the classified staff is getting 3%, which was put into the continuation, that would have gotten to a 5%. I don't know if we could.
Could you say that? Could you say those numbers again? I'm sorry.
Okay, it's right in that budget ask. So in the continuation budget, they put in the 3% that the state was going to give. In the expansion part, under classified pay increase, they put in 5%, and that was going to cost $2,774,874. So when you added that amount to the 3%, that would have been given a total of 5%. So I don't know if, since we're at 2,650,000, if there's any way we could get to that number. That was the original ask, if we could do that. I do appreciate the fact that the county manager has done this, because when the numbers came back and you're looking at, I did not realize this, that 1,196 DPS employees make less than $19.22. That's huge. And unfortunately, because the state just starts the salaries out so low, and we as a county, we as a community have been working so hard to catch people up, right? And we've done so much. I mean, even before I stepped on this board, Commissioner Jacobs, former Commissioner Carter, Burns, Cowerton, et cetera, other people who have been on this board trying to get this number to go up, right? And now we're at the point where we're going to have to really come up with some planning with both bodies to figure out how do we get to this livable wage without always resorting to the property tax to do it. So I'm a little like, it's hard because you work with these people. I've worked with many of them, and I did this work for many years to get people to more money, and now it's getting tougher. The state is just putting more and more and more on us. So I don't know if we can get to that $2,774,874. The question I have is, okay, if we contribute that much, would people's salaries go up $1? It would? Okay. And then if DPS comes up with that amount, it should go up to 19. So it won't go up to 19. It'll go up to 18. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because the ask was for 10 million. Okay. And based on feedback, there is an amount that the county would come up to at 2.6 million, and Durham Public Schools would give the same amount to come up to the $18, okay? And then with us coming back to talk about this next fiscal year, there are so many unknowns right now. The fact that they don't have a state budget for the current fiscal year puts them in a challenged space. I'm hopeful, based on the various scenarios, they will be at a better position in a few weeks, if not months. And so from our perspective, because they are now navigating quite a few different areas, we felt it best to do a measured approach at a level that they can match us as they look at their total operations, and that's what's presented based on board feedback.
Gotcha. And then also, of course, you always have to figure in the amount for the charters, right? So I think this is a good plan, but I'm just asking that question because that was the superintendent's original ask before the board voted differently. The school board voted differently. It was $2,774,874, and so I want to hear from my colleagues if we keep it here or if we could bond it to get it to that number, or would it make a difference? Yeah.
It's only 100,000 plus more than what the county is proposing right now. With the county proposal plus the promises from DPS, it's more than the 5% increase that the superintendent originally asked for directly from the county. They came back to the table and said we could find a couple of $1 million along with the 2.6 here that's proposing. If you go from $17 an hour roughly to $18 an hour, that's a 5.8% increase. So what I would say is that what is being proposed now from the manager, per discussions with you all, is higher than what the superintendent originally requested. It is not what the BOE is requesting, the difference between those two documents, but it is a medium somewhere in the middle, higher than what the superintendent at 5%. This would be higher than a 5% for classified. It'd be 5.8, closer to 6%, depending on what DPS brings to the table.
I just want to mention something there. So if that were the case with the 5.8, with this 5.8, it gets it to 5.8 with the 2.6 million that the manager is
roughly. Depending on if we're doing $1.
I get it.
Okay,
I get it. I'm speaking just in general terms. That's right at, or just at about half of what the ask, the board ask is for raises. So if we get to the half right now, maybe we can have some discussions later about how we over some cycles to get the rest of the way up there. I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, I have a better understanding now. I was just trying to make sure.
I was just saying that in the ether, just overall, not directly to you.
Yeah. So I have an understanding now that it's more than what he was originally asking for. So thank you so much. That's why we have these discussions, right?
And thank you for bringing up that reconciliation, because there are lots of moving parts, and so this does confirm that we're in the right direction.
Right. Okay, was that all for you, Commissioner Burton?
Yeah, and like I said, we're going to have to figure out a strategic plan on how we get people to this livable wage in the long term. So thank you.
I would love for that to be like a future discussions piece, as us together with the school board working through how do we get there over what cycles, so that we actually have a plan as part of the strategic plan. Well, not our strategic plan, but a plan. Yeah. Vice Chair Alum.
Yes, I know I talked to budget staff this morning as well as the manager Hager. I think so from this, so 2.65 is the county coming in, and we're hoping the DPS has made a commitment to match the 2.65, and then with the state hopefully coming in to cover master's pay, that's another 1.7 million that they would reallocate from their emails to classified pay, that they'll no longer need to be using local funding for that. So this brings us up all of this to 1822 for the classified staff, hopefully. And I guess I would like to know, because DPS is coming to 2.65, following back up with them, because in those conversations at the joint meeting, Teeter did say 3 to 4 million that they had. Can they come up with that remaining 1.4 that they said they potentially have?
I had exchanges with the superintendent, and they can meet our number, and so we'll feel comfortable that what's being presented is an area that they can actually honor.
Okay. And so do we have an understanding then, just for budget transparency, because I guess I would just like to know, since they brought it to us that there was this potential 3 to 4 million,
well, and we'll follow up about the 3 to 4 million. I will say that because they are facing lots of unknowns and have to do realignments because of some enrollment shifts, that we may consider waiting to get all of those details. With my conversations, it was one, can you support the 2.6, and we recognize you're still fleshing out your budget and may be looking at other areas, and that was a confirmation of yes. They also plan to give us the additional information, because beyond this particular priority, they have a lot of areas that we were not able to meet in our funding. So I know those remain priorities. So we will firm up when we can get those additional details and bring those back to the board as an update, and we'll work with them through our normal joint meetings to inform the board.
That'd be really helpful, because I think obviously the 1822 to 19 then jump, as Manager Hager and I were talking this morning, would be an additional 5 million, which would be another half-cent essentially or more for the county, which is a lot for the county to carry on its own. So, but if I would really, really like to see DPS, with that 3 to 4 million that they said they have, come back to us with this information of, can they put in that full 3 to 4 million? I think we should really be pushing them, since they've stated it, that it is a possibility to bring that money forward. And also, I know I sent an email yesterday, I'd like to see their actuals on their spending, as well as what is their executive level spending versus classified, because I know on our level at the county, Manager Hager had to do a lot of realignment because we were in typical budget situations to be we have a lot of heavy overhead spending at this area, we need to readjust. And I would like to see DPS doing similar readjustments within their budget, because if they can find these savings, which I believe that they should be able to from the funding that we have given them, can we close that additional 5 million with them coming up with more, and then maybe just not the half-cent from the county additional, not on top of the half-cent you're already proposing now, but something. But and I'll follow up. I know you're following up with Mr. Teeter and Dr. Lewis already, but yes, that 1.4 million, as well as their actuals in spending from the budgets of the funding that we've given them in the past already. It hasn't been allocated and going to the areas that they've said that it's going to be going to from the county locally funding, so that we can close that final 5 million.
I would just reiterate that they may need more time to flesh out all those nuances, and we may not be able to reach it at this juncture through the fall, that we have those follow-up conversations, only because there are so many moving parts right now with the state budget as well as some of the federal. And I just want to make sure they're not in a situation that they can't absorb it and then it becomes a county opportunity. And so I just want to caution timing, because we can always come back later. We've done that in the past. And so I appreciate the sense of urgency, because this is very important, because these are the individuals that help to make sure our children thrive. And so that's important to our community.
Absolutely. And Chair, that it's also, I mean, and I know we talked about this morning as well, that it's difficult because like the county has increased our funding, and unfortunately we're in this state that DPS, and I know Dr. Lewis and Mr. Teeter have been making a lot of improvements and efforts, but we're at this point of, you know, mistrust with the management side of things, that unfortunately our classified workers are getting the brunt of that punishment or fallback because of that mismanagement. And I don't know if maybe Chair Lee, I know you and Chair Umstead have been working on the MOU agreement, if there are things that we can shore up in there as well with our agreement of DPS, of budget transparency between the county and DPS, and having more structured guidelines about, I know we can't dictate what the money we give them goes towards, but maybe in our MOU we can have those alignments, so that way we know that the taxpayer dollars that we are putting forward are being used the way that they have been intended to be used by, that we are asking residents to pay more in their property taxes to fund, as well as providing our budget staff the information they need for us to rebuild that trust and relationship, so that our classified staff aren't the ones who are suffering.
Go ahead.
What I will say, one of our first bullets and values that we have as far as board policy conversations are quarterly briefings and budget performance updates. And with DPS as a part of our budget, we can commit to making sure that we have a companion document that gives some highlights in a greater detail for DPS when we give the board those updates. And if and other partner organizations that have large amounts, although DPS is the largest, I think that that would not be anything different that they're already sharing with their board, but we can work towards a format with the superintendent so that that transparency is there and it becomes a part of our natural cycle, especially as we manage in this unique environment that we find ourselves.
Okay. And I just, as you walk out, Vice Chair, for the actuals to come in from DPS, that actually takes a long time because of reimbursements that they do and movement. So I like the idea, but just be aware that it takes a little while to get actuals from the school district. Commissioner Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the efforts that are being made here on behalf of our staff, and I also agree it is really heartbreaking to hear from the classified staff and the way that people are struggling to survive. So we know this is really, really important. At the same time, we have to balance that with the fact that there are a lot of people in our community that are also struggling in different ways, and the impact that raising property taxes are having. Commissioner Burton and I we were at Hillside for an amazing, the students presenting solutions to policy issues and problems in our community. And on our way out, a SRO from the Office of the Sheriff stopped us and very sincerely said to us, you know, I own a home here in Durham, but I am really struggling to support my family on the salary I make, and then with the rising costs, you know, please don't raise my taxes anymore. So, you know, that's the challenge that we have. You know, we hear people say, oh, please do raise my taxes, but the reality is that we're having a shift in our country now. And cumulatively, with all, you know, the cost of gas, cost of food, things like that, that people are really, you know, you see the data around people taking on record amounts of credit card debt. You look at the macroeconomic factors, and so we do have to take this very seriously, raising property taxes another 0.5%. I do support this, and mainly because, for me personally, I will only support this if Durham Public Schools is matching us in this. I you know, they have to put skin in the game, and we have to jointly and collaboratively be making tough decisions based on demographic changes and the impact of state policies. You know, they are suffering because of policies around the vouchers and private schools and charter schools. So, you know, we are all in this together, and that also means that when we're looking deep into our budget, and departments are having to sacrifice, and we're having to do things differently, we have to expect that from them. And also, this needs to be the number one priority right now for Durham Public Schools, raising the salaries of the classified staff. And again, it's about priorities. So I, like Commissioner Alam, you know, I heard that $3 to $4 million. We have been asking for weeks now for follow-up information. It is discouraging to me that even at this time that we still have not gotten definitive information. I know, but I do want to make sure that before we adopt the budget, that we have gotten something in writing from them.
Well, I did receive from the superintendent their commitment and their ability to match us with this $2.6 million, and we will also have the responses to the other questions later this week. Some of the questions at first glance may appear simple, but they do require a deeper dive, and so we'll get those responses.
Okay, thank you. And then, you know, I do understand the additional capital, you know, the need to really help with some of the technology that is aging out. And I appreciate the support for social services and public health. You know, even if these are kind of set aside also to see as so that we can respond, and the $50,000 to support reunification, I will be really interested to hear directly from our DSS director and DSS staff what they have identified as currently, like what are the funds available. I'd like to better understand what is available to support family permanency, and then how could this money be used, because of course local funding, you have a lot more flexibility. So at some point it would be great to hear that. So yeah, I support this approach, and I wouldn't feel comfortable going above 0.5 cent personally, because again, what I said before. I do have a few other questions about some other items. One was the cut for the DOST funding. It's $2,000. I would like to see the DOS budget stay at $100,000. You know, they had asked for $150,000, and that is a fund that actually creates value. It is a good investment. We've seen we get our return on investment. So I would really not, because the budget has $98,000, and I understand where that's coming from, but I would like to see that stay at $100,000.
We can realign those dollars.
And then I know that, you know, there were some things I had asked for reports and things on that we don't have yet, but, and I know the Hayti Reborn.
And they just sent theirs, so we'll send that to the board.
Okay, because I do think it's important that we look at that, especially when we have very limited funding. I'm concerned that there's only $350,000 set aside for food security, which is, you know, $100,000 less than this Hayti Reborn for one nonprofit. And we haven't gotten, and you know, I know we evidently just got the information, but I haven't seen it yet. But this past year we allocated $465,000 for food security, and I just think that is going to be a real crisis. I went to the Meals on Wheels gala on Friday, and I actually presented some comments on behalf of our board. And right now, the waiting list for Meals on Wheels is over 600 people. And so you think about our seniors, our most vulnerable residents, and it's not just about the food, it's like the social contact that people get with Meals on Wheels. I think there's some opportunities for us to do some things creatively and problem solving around that I learned that night. And by the way, I'm so proud of our staff. Raina, our food coordinator, she was one of the kind of keynote speakers. She did a fantastic job. And then Julio Simuel, one of our general services staff, his wife was also one of the keynote speakers, talking about her family and her grandmother, how she had been helped and her family by Meals on Wheels. So we really, I was very proud of our staff that night. But anyway, so that is one thing I just wanted to flag as something I think we really, and I know maybe the social services additional funding will help.
And I will say that was the intent with the dollars there. Our social services team in the budget over the years has supported gaps that may not be covered through federal or state dollars, and Meals on Wheels is one area in particular. We're also mindful with some of the federal grants that are winding down that were part of the ARPA or infrastructure dollars that happen at the state and federal level, and even some of the dollars that we allocated. We recognize those gaps are there. And so when we talk about how do we support families, helping ensure that we can bridge, when possible, those food insecurity gaps or housing insecurity gaps, the Department of Social Services as well as public health with the medical support are at the front line. And so it's not enough, but it does support some of the 2% reductions that we had to make.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that this will be, this funding for public health and social services can be a potential way to help with that. And then also I just wanted to highlight in terms of, and thank you so much to the staff for the response to my questions. I wanted to highlight something that was really fascinating. When I asked about the use of our microtransit program, really fascinating that most of the usage is for Durham Public Schools. it showed that the majority of the trips that are being used for students to go to Riverside, Southern, Northern, Lucas, and the School for Creative Studies. So I think this is really interesting for us to dig into in the fall, is to get an update on this program and just to try to understand more of this dynamic that's happening. And this was fascinating to me, because we started this as a way to try to kind of a bus desert in the northern part of the county, northeastern part of the county, where we don't have a lot of bus service, and also like how to help people get to the jobs in Trayburn, again, to address economic opportunity, because there are a lot of good paying jobs there for people that you don't have to have a lot of educational background for. And instead it's really being used for kids to get to school, which is great, but that, I don't know, it's just like, what does this mean? I don't really know, but I just think I just want to highlight that was really, really interesting. So again, I do support this with the caveats of I would like to see a commitment, and also related to the conversation around how do we move forward working with DPS. I think one obvious change is from the data that staff shared, we have to get down to 20% benchmark for locally funded positions. We're at 24% now, and Wake County, Mecklenburg County, everyone else, the highest is 20%. So how do we achieve that being in line? And also what Commissioner Burton raised about doing something, a forum around what's going on with our charter schools, and because we can't just be trying to hold Durham Public Schools accountable. We can't just ask for transparency and accountability for them and not be doing it for all of the schools that are receiving Durham County funding. So I look forward to us doing that as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Did you have one more thing? All right.
I just wanted to bring this up. I had going back to the opioid, what was presented to us. I wanted to find out how was it decided how much money community groups were given? Dr. Boone reached out to me about the funding. I think her organization is getting $61,000, and I know she requested more. So, and I know there was a discussion a few days ago about it. So I wanted to find out more. How is money allocated towards these community groups to do the work around, opioid, things like that?
I will start, and then I'll have ACM peers to weigh in further. There was a process developed for funding allocation similar to what we've done in other grant allocation processes, such as the ARPA funding. A committee structure was established, and dollars allocated to priority projects. Before the RFP happened, there were several county-related projects that were funded based on evidential research and investments that had been made in the past. So they were either new programs or expanded based on best practices, and those have been in place. The medical director for the detention center was added, and that's a part of that base funding. There's funding also for community outreach that's coordinated through EMS, again at the front line when they respond to opioid-related incidents. And then there were a couple of others that I'm not quickly able to recall, but ACM peers, I'm sure they will. Jurisdictions have used different approaches for strategy and funding. Some jurisdictions have used opioid dollars and funded it totally through their county operations because they have the infrastructure there within their public health department and other places, and so that's where they felt from an efficacy perspective it was the best approach. Some have done blended approaches. Some have allocated all of their opioid dollars to a community partner. So I know the city of Durham allocated their funds to Lincoln Health because they are a community partner, work with Duke, have the evidence, have the staff, and that's another example. So it varies depending upon organizational strategy, and but most important, it's an approach. All of it should be, where do you get the greatest return on the investment? And the blended approach is one that Durham County has done. I do believe we had close to over $4 million, over $6 million in ask above what we were able to fund. And so that also comes into the formula, the ask compared to our ability to support. And so I'll let ACM peers pick up.
Manager Hager, you did a great job explaining that process. And so, and on your board, you have a sitting member of the advisory committee that came up with the recommendations. However, also the committee looked at evidence-based practices, not saying that those that did not receive the funding that they requested or adequate funding did not, but they looked at continuity of the services and other activities that occurred. And before the recommendations would even be presented to you, there were the things that some of the activities and required pieces per the funding, such as the administration piece. The co-chairs of the committee presented, I can't remember which presentation, which session, I guess detailing what the process is, and then I believe they're going to meet very soon to debrief the process that they did have and come up with some strategies and best practices and lessons learned. So I'm not sure if that question's answered for you about what went into the calculus of how the amounts came to be, but they were already front-loaded some of the county commitments with the funding already. So just limited resources, and as the manager mentioned, with really 1.5 million, and we were able to identify additional funds for a $6 million+ request.
Gotcha. So it goes through a process of deciding who gets what, how much, based on a lot of factors. Okay. And I can contact you more about it so I can learn more, and I'll talk to Commissioner Jacobs about it, but I just wanted to make sure I addressed it. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Just as a heads up for commissioners, there will be an opioid ordinance coming to the board on June the 8th as well that you will approve, sort of listing out where those dollars are going. That opioid ordinance can always be changed during the year, but that's coming on the 8th as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. There were over $6 million worth of requests for funding. I would say one change is that this year, because last year the only nonprofits that received funding were the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition and Recovery Innovations. This year, it's now a 60-40 split, so 40% to nonprofits, 60% to county government related programs. So this year, Together for Resilient Youth, TRI is being funded, North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition, BART, which is a medication-assisted treatment provider, Recovery Innovations, and also Southlight Health Durham. They provide housing, but there were many organizations that actually didn't receive any funding. For instance, Oxford House, that provides housing, the Morse Clinic, that is also an MAT provider, and there were a number of other ones. I think that this is also a policy decision that if we want to free up more funding to support the community-based organizations, then it means that we will need to fund some of the other programs through the tax base. In other words, so that's a choice. That's a policy choice that I think this board needs to give direction to the Opioid Advisory Committee about, because, and so that is I think that's a discussion that we should have. And I absolutely understand the frustration for organizations like TRI, who does amazing work in the community. Is just, how can we approach this going forward? I will say that in terms of recommended funding levels, there was a preliminary recommendation from staff for $75,000 for Durham TRI. Then the committee came back and they ended up doing a different process where they ended up with the 61,000, I forget the exact number. So those were the two numbers that were out there. I just want to share that. So they were originally recommended by staff for 75,000. But it was very, very difficult. But there's no doubt they are a partner with Narcan. They do many things, but in terms of this specific award is related to harm reduction and distribution of Narcan in the community, which they are definitely a very important and key partner for that.
And I appreciate all of this. I'm learning about the opioid fund and things like that and all the processes. So I appreciate all the information, and we'll just go forward in figuring out, giving direction and about everything. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I did have a question. So with these two new the proposed things that we have on here, what is that total for the for DPS?
Keith, can you clarify the response to the question? What is the new DPS total with this additional $3.6 million? And you know what? I can look. Hold on.
Mike.
Total.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Okay,
I don't have staff.
It's like 10. I just wanted to just clarify.
Sure.
I'm sure. I could add it up here.
238 million.
No. I mean, like for the addition for this cycle, not the total of what we send.
We did 10.9 million in additional funding before this additional $3.65 million. So it's roughly $14.5 million, if I'm rounding.
Okay.
Of additional funding for DPS.
Additional, yeah. All right, additional 3.65. Okay. So, okay. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Let's see here. I'm gonna pass on. I'm not really sure where the place is. I think I'll just talk to you directly because I'm not entirely sure where a place is as a add or remove or policy discussion. I'm not sure where the place, and I don't want to put it in the wrong place. So I'm gonna talk to you directly, and then we can possibly discuss it on Monday there. Because I have a thing I've been interested in. I'm just not sure where to place it. So I'll skip that for right now, okay?
Okay, and we can always talk about it.
Okay. Yeah,
in the new year.
Just a one-on-one.
Yes,
there.
sir.
All right. But this discussion has been really, really good, and it looks like there's some things to consider. But I really want to highlight that we are, with this addition, we're actually moving closer to what DPS is asking for their classified staff. Right. This with the work that DPS is going to do, and with this additional 2.6 million, that's going to move possibly a couple dollars closer. But on top of that, we are committing to working on a plan to see how we can close that gap. And that's not, I don't see that as us moving towards the 1922. I mean, it's so like our 1922 is moving, like at some point, at some rate it's moving. But I really want to make sure that we catch up, right, at some point, whatever that may be. And I want to be able to measure on that as we go. Like each year as we get closer and closer, I want to see how that gap is closing. That's going to be really important for people. But once we confirm where DPS is, what they're doing on their side, making sure that we're confirming that they're doing the 2.6 as well, I would really, I'm just saying that once it's there, I really want to communicate what that means salary-wise for the classified staff, where that actually lands. I think it's going to be important for us to communicate that out, what that actually looks like. Okay. Other than that, I appreciate the work that you all did to get that 2.6 million, and the other funding there is super important. So, thank you. All right, we're clear.
And I just want to say also us thinking about where we want county employees to be, raising, going above the 1922 and thinking about that because we want them to know that we value what they do and we want their salaries to increase, so we can have conversations about that as well, moving up above the 1922. So thank you all for all this hard work.
Right. This is good. All right. Yes.
Just real quick, there's a couple other things on the add delete list. I just want to state they don't cost the county dollars. There's a OES grant that needs to be added in. That would be a plus $59,000 in revenue and a plus $59,000 in expenditure. Just would be remiss without pointing that out, that's a small change to the budget. And after some clarifying discussions with public health about the DINE program, it's not a reduction of 4.97 positions, it's a reduction of only 4 positions. So there's going to be a 0.97 FTE change between the manager's recommended budget and the approved budget. Not a dollar change, just an FTE change. So just those are 2 technical changes that I would feel guilty if I didn't let you know as part of what's happening, along with what you just decided on for DPS, which is that ½ cent and a little funding for DSS and public health. Okay. So are we having a meeting on the 4th? No, we are going straight to the ordinance. All right, we're clear. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to thank the budget team,
Yes.
organizational effectiveness, all of the county departments for your efforts. We have been working on this budget since September, and it's been intense, and I thank you for your commitment to Durham County and our taxpayers. And although some tough decisions had to be made, I feel good about the process that we went through to get to this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Manager Hager.
Absolutely.
And thanks to our budget staff and to OE staff. There's a lot of work that went into this, so we appreciate it.
Right. All right. So I think that brings us to the end of our agenda today, our budget work session. All hearts and minds clear? All right. Consider us adjourned. Thank you. All right.